It's getting close. Pat Mahomes looks like he's going to play. The Chiefs have a big matchup against a tough foe in the run game. This defense has to step up, and there's a lot of little wrinkles. Let's talk about the game plan for the Tennessee Titans. Welcome back to RGR. I'm Ryan. This is me going rogue once again on the Kansas City Chiefs and this week's opponent, the Tennessee Titans. And there's a lot of similarities. We're going to get into that in a minute. If you're new to the channel, hit the sub, the notification, leave your comment below, and leave a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you missed my film review from last week, check that out because a lot of things are going to be similar. And we're going to talk about predominantly what the defense has to do to continue this role. Off the top, though, we have to look at the fact that it sounds like, as of this recording, which is a little bit ahead of time on Thursday, it looks like Pat Mahomes is going to be in this ballgame. And that is a breath of fresh air. Although I have to say, the performance of the offense behind Matt Moore has been great. And so much so that I'm not really particularly focused on what the offense has to do this week against these Titans because they're missing Malcolm Butler, who just went out for the season. So the pass game's a little bit more susceptible. Yes, they have Jackson out there. You have to keep an eye on him. The safeties can come and go a little bit. There's some room to maneuver in the secondary. And they're also likely to miss Kelce, as it sounds right now. So there's also a big gap right up the middle. So running the ball, which is something we'll talk about in a minute, is not off the table at all, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good way to make some yardage, keep pressure off of Pat, and we'll go from there. Now, if something happens, and it ends up being Matt Moore, not a problem. I think all the things still apply. It's just that they want to get some snaps for the MVP if he can go. There's going to be some rust. There's going to be a little bit of stuff that he has to work through, and that's fine. What you do getting it out of the way now is that you make him more prepared for the Chargers, a little bit more comfortable being back out there and not so much rust. And that's really all it's going to be is rust. So we're going to focus on the game plan attacking what they have to do in order to guard themselves and continue this process that we've seen lately where the defense is actually stepping up and performing on par with the offense. There's a couple of wrinkles, and some of it's going to seem familiar. Some of it will be a little bit different. You have to understand, as we start here in the first point, I'm going to give you some visuals. I'll probably come back and do a little bit of film examples, not the in-depth stuff that I do in the film room, but I want to give you a taste of what the Titans do. And they've had a quarterback change. Marcus Mariota, been there for a while, has been the starter, replaced by Ryan Tannehill. Right now, it seems Tannehill's the guy that's going to play against the Chiefs, and that's just fine because Tannehill's got kind of a reduced range. What we've seen for him the last few weeks is not many passes looking to go beyond 20 yards. And that plays into what the Chiefs can do. They have that ability to get beat long because of some of their DBs, particularly in Breland. And if Fuller's back, Fenton as well. They all have susceptibilities. Everybody's got a weakness. Those guys in particular, their weaknesses tend to be on the long side. So with a quarterback that isn't looking to go deep or has some confusion about what the Chiefs are doing in the secondary, and we have seen them mix it up, some cover two, some cover one. We saw quarters last week. I think we're going to see some cover four deep, and I think they're going to try to mask it quite a bit. That, again, brings me back to Tannehill trying to keep the passes, 20, 22 yards and shorter, which again plays into what the Chiefs can do. It brings it back around to pressure. And when we're looking at Ryan Tannehill, the Chiefs have the ability that we saw last week to play big and still get pressure. Don't think Frank Clark's going to play in this one. Haven't heard that for certain at the time that I'm recording this, but that's my gut feeling. So you're looking at a very, very similar lineup. With Noddy and Saunders manning the middle, which is someplace that the next guy we're going to talk about really loves to be, with Agba and most likely Chris Jones on the outside. And that's fine. Alex Okafor has not practiced to this point this week, so I can't see that he'll be available. But the rest of the rotation should be intact. So I do see that Ryan Tannehill is a guy that you have to get after. And we saw a little bit of NASCAR mixed in last week. We definitely saw some rotation. The key word being rotation in the Chiefs' defensive front. And that's something that can get after what they're trying to do in the pass game. And the guy that I think really stands out in terms of a target for Tannehill, I'm a big fan of A.J. Brown. He's been up and down, had a deflection for a pick last week. So I'm not going to focus on him here. The guy that I think is the athletic matchup that really gives them the edge is Jonnu. A tight end that's athletic, that can move around, that can split out. And we're going to see a play here that really defines what he and Tannehill can do together that I think the Chiefs need to be on the lookout for.
Ryan Tannehill has some targets, and with Delaney Walker out, number 81, Jonnu Smith, is going to be his backup tight end. And Smith is a guy that's very athletic. I liked him coming out of school, and he can really move. They are set up here in a shotgun with a 1-by-3 configuration, and Smith is actually the guy on the farthest outside. He's got a corner on him, and you're going to see how this play develops and just how athletic he is, something the Chiefs are going to have to look for as they roll forward. At the snap, he's just taken an underneath slant. It's really not very complicated. They have to guard for this switch, and that's what the Buccaneers here did not accomplish. Tannehill's looking at him the whole way, makes a nice grab, a little bit behind him, has to turn his body, but this is a guy that can make you hurt if you just don't pay attention to how athletic he is. So some of the Chiefs will have to be paying attention to.
Now, if they can get pressure on Tannehill, they're going to do well. Not great under pressure. If they can man up, and I want to see Sorensen in particular man up on the tight ends. I think he's pretty keen at that, although I was really encouraged by what Fenton did last week as well. So you have two guys that you can kind of mix and match in the dime look, in the nickel look, that can give you some coverage on a bigger tight end that maybe they haven't had in years past. So I'll be interested to see what that matchup is that Spags goes with. Now, moving on from that is really... point number 2 is really the biggest one, in that Derrick Henry is a guy that you have to account for at all times. And I feel like this particular game is going to be a throwback for the Titans. Now, Mike Vrabel isn't calling the offense, so he's relying on offensive coordinators and their position coaches. And last week they got out of kilter. He only got 13 carries. And the predominant volume of it was inside between the tackles. He's a north-south runner that can really get ahead of steam and hurt you. But that's not all he can do. We saw earlier in the season that he was able to hit the edges a little bit. Now, Chiefs have been very stout around the edges, even without Frank Clark. Emmanuel Ogbah made a lot of his presence known about setting that edge.
Set the edge! Hey. Set the edge! Hey, I set the edge, baby. No gain. Every time they come to my edge. No gain, no gain, no gain. I know.
Brilliant. They cannot run the ball if we set the edge like that.
And against the Vikings, that's what Ogbah was able to do. He's going to have to do it again this week. Containing Derrick Henry inside the tackles is going to be key, but he does make yardage there. So it brings it back to his former teammate, Reggie Ragland, and the guys at the linebacker level, and Damian Wilson, as well as Anthony Hitchens, are going to have to be on their game. The two tackles up front, Saunders and Noddy, and whoever else rotates in there on running downs, quote unquote, have to do their job, keep those linebackers clean so that they can attack between the tackles. I'd like to see continued pressure. We saw some A-gap stuff. We saw a little bit of twisting. You got to keep them on their heels because Derrick Henry is a load to bring down, and nobody knows that better than Reggie Ragland.
I know I got a good friend back over there playing running back there, so he's a very good back. Tough to bring down, so we got to run our feet.
Henry, you've known him for a long time, obviously. When you first saw him when he was at Alabama, did you believe he was a running back as big as he was?
The first time I saw Derrick was going into my senior year of high school, and we was at the opening out in Oregon at the Nike factory, and he's in 11th grade. I'm like, this can't be possible.
If the offensive coordinator learned his lesson from last week in not giving enough attention, enough carries, enough touches overall to Derrick Henry, that's going to change. And the Chiefs are going to be faced with a heavy dose of that big running back that they're going to have to corral over and over and over. You've heard me talk about the run game, how it can wear a defense down. That's what the Chiefs have to guard against. Not talking about what they're doing, trying to keep that defense fresh. It's key to having success against the run on early downs and getting off the field on third. Chiefs gave up all of their touchdowns last week on third downs. So you want to get them off the field so they can stay rested. It's going to be a long day. Henry between the tackles is going to give you something that can score really from anywhere.
I want to give you a quick look here at Derrick Henry and what the Titans have a tendency to do in running downhill. You're going to recognize this from something that you saw against the Vikings as well. 5 offensive linemen, deep set, single back with a tight end, wide receiver triangle over here. One tight end up on the line of scrimmage. Look at his open stance. He is giving away that he's going to be blocking down in this direction. It is a very simple concept. This is a man blocking scheme that's just going to attack them downhill. And as we roll it forward, you're going to see these guys will come down, make contact, double the outside end, and slide off towards Luke Kuechly, who's up here. And right here, this double has slid off. One tight end has sealed here. One tight end has sealed here. Wide receiver coming down towards the safety and just free sailing here for Derrick Henry, who you'd like to see hit the hole real hard and just run people over. Let's see what he actually does. Veers away a little bit, but gets the job done and gets into the end zone.
Now that clip of him running the ball, that's just the start, because the intriguing thing about him, and honestly what I liked about him coming out of college, was that despite his size and being, a guy that could probably line up as a tight end, he can catch the ball very well in addition. And Tannehill knows that as well. They've used that some. We'll look at that in a second. But he's a dual threat. And you're going to see some formations that look very much like what we saw from the Vikings. So the Chiefs have a familiarity. It's going to be about breaking tendencies and not playing these Titans as you played those Vikings. Even though some of the formations are going to look the same, some of the motions are going to look the same, they have to break that down and play true to their assignments, not get lulled into what they saw last week.
Now here's another look at the skill set that Derrick Henry brings to this game. And this is a familiar look, a 3-by-1. And this, I'm just going to let it roll quickly. This play from this angle really shows you the full speed, what he can do, and the fact that he displays multiple skills in breaking tackles, juking tackles, making the catch, and gaining yardage. When we look at how this play is set up, motion with Jonnu Smith, get him into position for that 3-by-1. And from here, we're going to see that Tannehill does a pretty good job of absorbing the pressure, making the fake, and actually getting the ball out with a little bit of sidearm here. And at that point, it's all Henry. This is something that I think they're going to use against the Chiefs front, and they can probably use it pretty well. This blitz actually gets caught out of position with no one left to really back him up. He gets a full head of steam, breaks one tackle here, breaks a juke here, and breaks a third tackle. This is what he can do. This is what the Chiefs are going to be guarding against.
That said, that's a pretty tall order. So they're going to have to be aware of where he is at all times. He is the spark of this offense. Everything else comes secondary. And I feel like that's what they're going to get from this particular Titans team. Mike Vrabel understands that. I know he knows this organization, maybe not this roster very well, but he knows the organization. I know that he feels like he has to come in here and set some kind of tempo, some dominance early, and I think he's going to use Derrick Henry to do it. Now, beyond that, a couple of little wrinkles. Got to see continued improvement on the Chiefs' defense from Tano Passanio. You have to be able to attack off the edges against this Tennessee team. You also have to be able to guard against A.J. Brown and a couple of other role players that might be able to get loose. So watch the zone versus man concepts that we've seen split across the field. I expect to see more of that. I hope that they can execute it well, and that's really going to be the key to it. And if they do, I feel like they're going to be in a good position to ride this game all the way down to the end. And if Mahomes is there, go ahead and go for it. The only guy, okay, there's two guys, Cam Wake, and what they have to do is keep him contained, but it's really on the other side. The pass rush has got to be guarded against Cam Irving because they're going to send some resources on that direction. I think we've seen that Cam's a little overmatched right now. I know Eric Fisher practiced on Thursday. Don't know that he's anywhere close to being ready to go. So I'm not going to make that assumption. If he's there, great. If he's not, they're going to have to work on, especially if it's Mahomes, on moving the pocket, rolling right, being able to set up behind Schwartz and use that movement to help Mahomes get the ball out. I still want to see quicker passes from him. I still don't want to see him lingering back there in the pocket too long, because the longer you give those guys to break down Irving, the more likely it is they're going to make some hits. And I think that's the number one thing you have to guard against. I would like to see them run the ball more because of the susceptibility on the inside. We'll see if they actually do that. We'll see if McCoy gets back on the field. Not sure what's going on in that situation. And you got to remember that Damian Williams broke that long run. But beyond that, didn't have the best day running the ball. They have to get better at that. They have to improve running between the tackles. They can attack this defense that way, and I think that's going to be very key. So I'm looking for the Chiefs to come up with a win. I feel like they're going to get back on a roll, especially if they get Mahomes back. And that's going to be positive momentum for weeks to come. They're going to need that. So let me know what you think. How do you feel about this team? How do you feel about this game? Give me your prediction down below. Leave a thumbs up if you like this one. If you're not subbed, click that right now. Click the notification bell so you know when something new goes up. I'm going to have my post-game live concept as well as the Monday Night Live Q&A. So tune in for those. Appreciate all your time and checking back in with me. I'm glad to be back. Check out these videos, and I'll catch you next time.